Welcome on in to the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider for KSL Sports. Joined tonight by the fellas, Cam Beck, Tyson Mall. Fellas, how we doing? Hanging in there?
It's brutal. That's all. It's brutal.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good about moving on from losses, but these last few weeks,
4 straight losses.
bad.
Hits a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing about 4-4. This is how I'm doing.
Yeah, it's brutal.
500 right now.
It's down in the dumps, man. We're down bad right now.
Like the definition of down bad.
As bad as I can remember being down as a Utah fan. I think like there were bad years in like the 2012 and 2013 years were not great. And
but you knew they were going to be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And never felt anything quite like this as a Utah fan in terms of the rug just kind of being pulled out.
And the fall, man.
Yeah.
This is just a brutal experience.
Yeah, that rug is at the top of the stairs that got pulled out.
I mean, what the last time Utah lost 4 was 2013? I think it was 2017. Was it 17?
Pretty sure it was 2017.
But like they lost 4 like anytime they lost that many, they lost 5 straight in 2013. Oof.
Whoa.
At least they were competitive though, and they were they lost to like Stanford and USC, when Stanford was Stanford. Somebody
posted something today on Twitter that was like trying to be optimistic, and is basically like, hey, listen, we've been here before, Utah fans. Like, these things happen, and they even as recently as the Pac-12, and they posted like a 4-loss stretch that was like Stanford, USC, Arizona State, and Oregon or something. Yeah. And I was just like, those are not the teams Utah just lost 4 games to.
No.
One of them is exactly one of them. But Houston ain't Stanford, and TCU ain't USC, and Arizona ain't Oregon. Arizona State is in fact Arizona State. It's one of those things where it's just like, listen, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it's not the same. That false equivalency is just like listen, the team's just bad right now. It's
amazing. Team. Yeah, it's amazing. Like, again, going back to the, getting the rug pulled from under you and falling down the stairs. Like, it just, all the momentum seems to be heading down the stairs, and you can't stop. You can't grab the guardrail. You can't grab the stair. Like, it feels like everything is just continuing to get worse. And
it's
when you watch, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's that game show where they try and have people run up stairs that are like greased with like oil, where you can't, there's nothing to grab onto, and there's nothing to get traction. Like, it's just you're just gonna keep going.
It's American Gladiator, but you also have the flu that day. And so you're already sick, and they're just beating the crap out of you.
American Gladiator,
you off of pyramids and into water and stuff.
Just the big old world's strongest men just in there with these big old clubs just whacking at you. They have what was that? The tennis ball shooter?
The tennis ball cannon.
The cannon? Yeah, dude. That's what it feels like. Everybody's just got a tennis ball cannon. They're just taking shots at us. Just
it was that the event where you went back to back, like Oklahoma drill, right into like full on freestyle wrestling within the span of 30 seconds against just pure muscle bound athletes.
Feels like Rulon Gardner is just sitting on our chest.
Too.
Can't breathe. No way out.
But yeah, 2 weeks ago after the Arizona game, it was just like, woof, hiccup, letdown game. Don't know what happened there. After Arizona State, it was just like, man, funk. Got to figure out how to do this. Like
Cam Rising, snake bitten.
What's going on with
holy
Cam?
cow.
Yeah, just that game was cursed from the start. And after that game, we basically said, like, hey, you've got these 2 games in a row. You just can't and shouldn't lose either of those games. And here we are.
Boy,
it feels like each one of those was worse than the last. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think Arizona State felt worse than Arizona, and TCU felt like the bottom. I mean, obviously still a loss, but like Houston felt like maybe one step out of that pit, but just not enough of them. I don't know. There were certainly lots of moments to hate in both of those games, but it's like picking, I don't know.
It felt like, so if we continue with just using the stairs, it felt like you did take a step forward in terms of the offense. Like, at least we saw first downs, and we didn't see, what was it against TCU, 11 punts in that game? Like, at least we cut down the amount of punts we saw, but it feels like that stair that you took a step on collapsed because you just lost to the bottom dweller of the conference in Houston.
Right.
And you're just back to square one.
Like, the thing I just keep coming back to is, like, at least, like, Houston, I don't know. At least you were on the road for Houston. That's the only thing I can kind of grasp at is Houston was like, you take 2 steps up the stairs and like there's a nail on the step. It's a damn Home Alone. Yeah,
we're
it's a damn Home
Alone. I was say the same thing.
Does that mean?
Yeah.
Man, I gotta tell you, that might mean that BYU is the piano coming down the stairs on top of us, or the toolbox. Utah's got their ear against the door, like, what is that? Do you hear that?
Who is the Macaulay Culkin? Who is doing this to us, man?
It's
Brett Yormark, the Macaulay Culkin?
Yeah, I guess yeah. Who is the Macaulay Culkin? Just, but yeah, if you're a Utah fan right now and you're feeling it, you're right.
You're hurting.
Like you're not. There's no unreasonable feeling right now as far as like feeling sad after a game. Yeah, that's okay. Those last 2 weeks. Those were, it's been brutal. Those genuinely 2 of the worst Utah football performances I've ever seen. I can't think of. I think I've seen more. I don't know that I've seen more frustrating games, because even in the games that were all-time letdown games, I felt like the team had moments. Like they had glimpses. Like there were at least you could string together a 3-play highlight reel from the game if you had to. And I don't feel like there's been 3 plays worth mentioning. And there's been maybe exactly 2. I don't know that there's been 3.
So let's dive into this. Obviously, Utah coming off the 17-14 loss on the road at Houston to the Cougars. Just a quick recap of the game. Utah with 306 total yards, an improvement of about 40 yards from the previous contest against TCU. The end of game situation, Brandon Rose throws an interception. We'll talk about that. Obviously, Kyle Whittingham going from Isaac Wilson to Brandon Rose in that second half. Brandon Rose throws an interception. Houston takes it the other way and marched down the field about 30 yards to set up the game-winning field goal. Utah missed 2 field goals of their own. But yeah, just getting into this game, when you're talking about highlight moments, it felt like you had a glimpse of hope. Second play from scrimmage, and Brant Keithy goes 71 yards on a screen play. Of all plays, a screen. He takes it 71 yards. Perhaps the most beautiful screen play that we've ever seen from Utah in quite some time. I mean, it was beautifully blocked. And Brant weaving his way through traffic to Noah Togiai, pancaking the dude, and you're just watching this and like, hey, maybe there's something to this, but it did not take long for the struggle bus to return and park on that Utah sideline. Because man, the struggles came back in a hurry, and Utah again just punts, turnovers, continue to hurt this team. And there's a lot of different things that we can talk about with this in terms of the struggles. But for you guys, what was your reaction? Obviously, early into the game, and you see Brant Keithy score from 71 yards out. Just what are you thinking in that moment? Because literally, I was like, "Oh, hey, there's something. There's life."
I didn't necessarily think it was going to be like complete turnaround, but again, like beautifully blocked, great call. The other thing I want to talk about is the throw. Like it's not like Isaac just got it, set his feet, and like threw a normal pass. Like that was a nice sidearm throw, right outside of the DN, trying to get his arm out to bat it, which is pretty close. But I mean, like that was a good throw too. Like that's a throw you want to see a guy make all the time. And I was just like, okay, all right, we've got something. There's something a little different. It was played well, and I thought, like, all right, let's just ride the momentum, just play off of that.
Yep, exactly my thoughts. Yeah. Oh, sorry, thought you were done.
No, yeah, I was done. But
just exactly my thoughts in terms of like, okay, great. The start you need to have a little bit of momentum, give yourself some breathing room, some cushion, something to pick you up after all these games, after these 3 down games in a row, and watched it fizzle before our eyes. A couple, the drives immediately after, if I recall, were not like Utah moved the ball a little. It wasn't like the 3 and out, the 3 and out feast that we saw after into the second quarter and third.
I mean that. So just to kind of give you some context there on that second possession, Utah went 6 plays, 33 yards. It included a nice little throw to the sideline to Dorian Singer. He hit the honey hole. We love hitting the honey hole. To Dorian Singer, who made a nice grab. And you're thinking, okay, maybe there is something to this. But then, they get that. They get 2 first downs, I think, and then they go 3-yard gain, 2-yard gain, and another 2-yard gain on 3rd and 5, and punt from the Houston 47.
Yeah, just a lot of that. A lot of every play other than the big one, the second play, felt like it happened between the 40s, like all game. Just there was kind of no getting out of no man's land, if not worse, right? Like a lot of plays on Utah's side of the field again. And then it just continued to spiral. Like it never, you kind of waited for 6 plays and punt, you live for another possession. There was another one that was 5 plays and 22 yards or something. It's like, okay, you punt after that, you live for another possession again. And then there was 4 or 5 of either 4 of 5 or 5 of 6 drives that had 0 or negative yards.
Yeah.
After that. And it's just sucking the air out of every room that a Utah fan is in. And just, you watched the offense just, I don't want to say give up in the moment, but just have nothing. Just
wither.
Just
kind of wither away.
No energy, absolutely no response. It was, you see how important momentum is to a football game, obviously for the obvious reasons, for picking up first downs and having positive yardage and keeping the defense on their heels and stuff. But just emotionally, end of the second quarter, those guys they didn't seem like they were even there anymore.
Sorry, Cam. I was just gonna say, the defense, it feels like they're bringing the lunch pail, right? To start this game, Houston went punt, fumble, which was the goal line stop at the 1-yard line. I don't know why they qualify that as a fumble on that play. There's a turnover on downs. Anyways, so they get stopped at the goal line, and then Utah obviously punts from deep from their own end zone, and Houston is able to take it 23 yards. They started that drive at the Utah 23-yard line after a 36-yard punt. out of the end zone and returned, I think, 15 yards. And, and you just kind of see, through this is just the first period. You just kind of see that momentum just kind of deteriorate offensively. There was the turnover, the Isaac Wilson, back-to-back fumbles. He got the one on second down back, but then gave up the one on third down, which was returned 22 yards, and then Utah gets the stop. But then, the offense responded, after that Houston touchdown. They put together a 13-play drive, which got all the way to the Houston 29 before a holding penalty sent them back 10 yards and put them behind the chains. And, this offense just isn't at a place where, you can count on them to overcome that sort of mistake, right? Like they almost did. I think Mackay got them to like 3rd and 3 after an 11-yard run, but then they don't execute on third down, and that results in a field goal attempt from 46 yards, and obviously that missed. And I think, had Cole Becker
2 field goal attempts from 46 yards,
correct, and I guess both were missed.
They missed them both.
From where we were, it was the most difficult angle. It was just tough to see, but I guess he missed both.
It was literally the exact same thing.
Same kick.
Both like the one that he made too. Wait, did he make one? No. Now I can't remember. Blocked the game out of my mind. It felt like all of his kicks.
He made one, but they called timeout.
That's right. That's right. The one he did make was the one that didn't count. But the first 2 were mirror images. Second one, the third one goes in, and then the fourth one looks like it's going to follow that same line, and then just never draws back, just stays right. It was, the
kick 3 times.
No. So, on the 2 different kicks.
Oh, gotcha.
Both of them had the same kind of. Both of them, he got to practice on both,
right?
And ended up being 1 for 4 in his totals, including the practices.
And the third
So he missed the field goal, and I feel like that was, the offense responded after the Houston touchdown, right? 13 plays, 50-something yards, and, that felt like that group showed resiliency, and then to have the missed field goal and that for an offense, like that has to be tough, right? You've been on the struggle bus, you find some offense, you drive the length of the field almost, you get into Houston territory, and then you miss a field goal. That has to be the gut punch to what the defense, a slight gut punch compared to what the defense has felt, with the gut punches the offenses have provided these last 2 games. But, I thought that was, a key moment, unfortunately, for Utah. Obviously, it's one of the part of the difference in the game. You miss that field goal, perhaps, you make one, it's a tie game at the end. You make both, you're winning, obviously. And that's tough. And I think from there, Utah, I think it was the previous possession, actually, that Isaac Wilson got thrown to the ground in the end zone and hurt his wrist. And I felt from there, he just
it was the end zone, in the end zone when he got thrown on his wrist.
Yeah, I feel like from there, not that he unraveled, but his performance obviously dipped. I thought he started strong. Like at one point he was 12 of 18. And then I don't know what it was exactly, but it just didn't have the same sort of zip on the ball. Didn't have the same accuracy, was slow. I think the hits that he was taking contributed to some of that as well. Because he took some big shots, and that's tough for a true freshman. The game is already fast enough. Then you add in those hits that just, you get those happy feet, you get a little antsy, and it's tough. And so it just kind of compounded issues. Going into the second half, wasn't able to get anything going momentum-wise, and Kyle Whittingham makes the change to Brandon Rose. How surprised were you guys by that decision? And then how surprised were you by Kyle Whittingham's reasoning that he was just looking for a spark?
I mean, the reasoning to me makes some sense. Everything we just talked about, the team had no energy. The team had no motivation. They were completely deflated after. And I think it really was, to your point you just made, like after that missed field goal, it's almost like you got this sense of like, for what? What are we doing this for? Because after that, it just shut down. There was just nothing on offense for 2 quarters. And so I guess I understand the sentiment of Whittingham saying like, you know, we wanted to see what else we had. The decision still, like, I guess the reasoning makes sense because I can see where the whole team is just grasping at straws. And the decision, though, I don't think had a chance, and I think that was my concern with the decision. Is it's there's doing things to make a spark, and there's doing things to make a spark that are truly just Hail Mary throws and kind of last like desperation. The point I made during or after the game is Brandon Rose, by no measure, by no metric, outplayed Isaac Wilson on Saturday. There's just,
Right.
I mean, you can try to spin it however you want. Like it just, even if you take away the one big play Isaac Wilson had, he still was better on a per throw, on a per play basis than Brandon Rose was. There's just, the stats are what they are. The reason you can't throw Brandon Rose into that is the same thing we've talked about all season when it comes to the quarterback situation, is he didn't have reps in practice. Like those are so important for these guys. Like when Isaac is the one getting those reps, when Isaac's the one spending that time with those guys, we already know what it looks like to put a quarterback out there who hasn't had those reps and how little of a chance they have to succeed. Putting Brandon Rose into that situation, sure, it's something, but it's throwing good. It's throwing good money after bad, in the sense that like you still have an opportunity with your remaining possessions. Isaac Wilson's still your best chance. Yes, Brandon Rose might provide you some kind of spark, but like when it, I don't know, it isn't putting him in a situation where he can reasonably succeed. And so that's why it surprised me most. But again, like in hindsight, now 2 days later, I mean, you got to try something, I guess, because if they were just going to continue to run out they're the same thing and get -1 yards per drive, is that worse than doing nothing? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big thing I keep coming back to is after losing the Arizona State game, and even more so after losing the TCU game, Utah's not playing for anything anymore. Like, if your goal at the beginning of the year was to win a Big 12 championship and go to the playoff, that's out the window. So at this point, you're playing for next year. And if the guy that it was QB2 that beat out everybody to be the backup at the beginning of the year, that's your guy next year.
Yeah,
like you got to let him just play the season out, take his lumps, get his experience. Like, if Whit would have came out and said that he got a little dinged up and it was affecting his play, but that wasn't the reason Whit gave.
Right.
You look for a spark in a game that when you're like, we got to win this game and this isn't working, and yeah, we're going to try something and see how it goes. You're not playing for a Big 12 championship anymore. You're not playing for those goals you set for yourself at the beginning of the season. You're playing for next year. And this is the guy that you, at the beginning of the season, you said he's QB2, and basically saying this is the guy that's going to be our guy next year, whether Cam stayed healthy or not. So at this point, it's like, you got to let him do it. You got to let him, because that's just going to set you up for next year. And it blows my mind that they just decided, like, yeah, well, we needed a spark. So we tried the guy that has been in the program for 3 years and never established himself as QB2. Like,
yeah, I think it requires an amount of patience that Whittingham just has never had to have, an amount of foresight that maybe, I mean, without, it's hard. And I'm sure maybe it is the right time to speculate about Whittingham's future, but like with, kind of what we've suspected could be, the sunset of his career. He's been doing it for 2 decades and things, like maybe it's partially that. Maybe it's, I don't know anything, obviously, but like if Whittingham is going to retire at the end of this year, maybe that's why. Maybe it's just like, listen, I'm not that invested in this kid next season because I'm not going to be his coach. I want to do something that's not so embarrassing. I want to put an offensive product on the field that's not so embarrassing tonight. And like, I get that. I can appreciate that if that's the reason. Like, we won't really know. But it's also just looking back in history, and when Whittingham has had to play freshman quarterbacks, it's been because the guy before them, just couldn't do it for one reason or another. But overall, the team was never that good. The team was never that talented around the quarterback. I mean, they were talented, they were fine, but they weren't talented like this team is talented. And so I
do think that's a factor. Absolutely, I think that's a factor.
And so I can see there being, frustrations and guys being vocal about it, probably on the sideline and in the locker room about, we saw Dorian Singer tweet something along those lines, right? Like a waste of talent, essentially, a couple weeks ago. And it's like, when you've got guys feeling that way, if you have some pressure or you have some motivation other than, sorry guys, it's about next year now. I can see being like, no, I've got to do right by these guys who came here, all of these talented guys who were here expecting to have a good season. I've got to do something for them. Yeah. And that's where I come back to, like, sometimes it's not just about next season, in the sense of, like, sometimes you've got to do right by the guys on the roster tonight.
Oh, absolutely.
That's definitely, that's 100% fair.
And I think that's where the frustration for me as a fan comes to, like, it's easy for us to just say, the season's done. Let's move on. Let's start thinking about next year. Isaac Wilson's got to get the reps. He's got to be the guy. You've got to put all your confidence behind him. But there's 100 people on that sideline who probably don't feel that way.
That's true.
And Kyle Whittingham might be one of them. And, like, he's never been embarrassed like this in his career.
Well, and you go throughout the years, right? He always talks about getting to bowl games for the seniors, setting the seniors off on a positive. And that is absolutely part of his mindset, part of who he is, part of his identity. I absolutely think that factors into part of that decision to go to Rose, to find a spark. It wasn't just that they were struggling. It was just that, the bigger picture is that, he knows there are veterans on that team that, still want to win and want to produce. And, he feels as a coach that he owes it to them. And, a guy like Brent Keithy, you understand why there would be that feeling, why there would be that sentiment, given all that Brent has done for the program over the years, right? And so it's tough. And this is the difficulty of being a head coach, but this is also why you're compensated the way that you are, to make these tough decisions. And I think, he's always going to own it, and he did. And it's for us fans, it can be frustrating, it can be annoying at times, but I truly believe he's just trying to do right by the guys in that program.
And I think that's fair. A good thing. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think, listen, like, it might have negative kind of side effects. There's trade-offs to anything, but it's not a bad thing. It's just who he is. And if Kyle Whittingham is anything, it is that he is loyal to the guys who have shown loyalty to him and his program, sometimes to a fault.
100%.
We've seen it time and time again. We've seen it bite him in the ass time and time again. But he is, above all else, loyal to the guys who are loyal to him. And I think that's what we saw on Saturday was, listen, Isaac Wilson's got plenty of time to earn loyalty from this program and to show loyalty to this program. The guys who are here, the guys who are suffering on this sideline, to use a hyperbolic phrase, like, they're the guys that Kyle Whittingham wanted and needed to show loyalty on Saturday. And so, like,
absolutely,
I get it. I do. Because, like, it was, I can't even imagine how they were feeling down there on Saturday in the third quarter.
Well, I mean, you think about it, right? Brent Keithy from Houston, Landon King from Houston, a lot of guys from Texas, from the state of Texas. And, you want to come into Houston, and you want to, allow these guys to, show out and perform in front of family and friends. And fortunately for Brent, he was able to do that. I think he finished over 100 yards on the game. He had a great game, great night. Jonathan Hall had a great night. And you want those moments, you want those opportunities and those those moments for those guys. And it's unfortunate that Utah wasn't able to get the win. But with that, right, I think it was interesting. This gets to the kind of the next topic here with the offense, right? I mentioned previously 306 yards in this game, about 40-yard improvement from the week before. It didn't feel all that different with Bajakian calling things. Maybe, some things here and there. But now having watched the game and kind of assessed some things, what do you make of the offense? Obviously not wholesale changes, not a drastic change, but were there signs, were there indications of progress, of improvement, from the week before?
As far as what do I make of the offense? When I first went to New Orleans, I went on a food tour, and that's where I learned about roux and how to make a roux. Essentially, you take oil and you take flour, and you cook those things for some amount of time, depending on what you're making. You add the Trinity, and then you add your other ingredients, right? And so I'll never forget the food tour guide saying, if you make a light roux, you're making, maybe sauces, you're making lighter soups. You make a dark roux, you're making he's like, you're making gumbos, or you're making like heavier stews. You make a black roux, you burnt it, you're making reservations, throw it away. That's what I think about the Utah offense. I think they burnt it.
Yeah.
I think it's time to throw it away. What is there to salvage from the offense that we've seen the past 2 games? I mean, there's just the bright spots we've seen feel like they amount to luck. Like they feel like you could button mash your way to those touchdowns in college football 25.
The same offense, it's just a different play caller. And it didn't. Maybe there were a couple things again, like some of the screens, like the play that got called back for holding on Pittman. Again, was a decent play, like 7-8 yards, but it was something we hadn't seen a lot before, like those quick receiver screens and the touchdown to Brant, the tunnel screens, and we saw not a lot, but a decent amount more off tackle runs. Jalen Glover, fantastic plays when he got in, like just getting outside the tackles and getting into space. Like it wasn't enough of that. And I think a lot of that came down to execution. But again, it's still the same offense. Like none of us should have expected anything, like you said.
Oh no,
right? Like it's still the same offense. It's not like Bajakian came in and put in a whole new playbook in a week. It's the same plays.
What did Mackay end with? 14 carries, and what did Glover end with? 4,
51 yards, 1 touchdown for Mackay. Jalen Glover, 4 carries, 33 yards with a long of 22.
How do those guys have 18 carries combined?
Yeah.
Especially with how close the game was. Not like they were playing from behind like we were against, like we were against Arizona.
It's not like you were chucking the ball around.
Yeah.
You know, like Mackay with 14 carries seems pretty damning on its own. But then seeing Glover to begin with was great. And like seeing what he did was great. But seeing that only 4 times was also puzzling.
Not great.
It's just like,
yes,
you've had one bright spot in this whole game on offense, and you won't give him the ball. Like,
and he looked like a dude that hadn't run for weeks and was finally set free. He ran hard. He looked good, and
he was fired up. He popped up from that long run and gave the first down.
Was ready to go to the next one.
And it's like
keep feeding him.
Man, that should have been 4 straight carries for Glover after that. Like, and just 4 total. Like, I don't know. It again, I think that's one of those things too that you chalk up. I think you have to chalk up to like interim OC in his first game, and like just not knowing how to adjust to personnel in game fast enough, and not having his bearings underneath him well enough. Like, I think it's fair to chalk some portion of the offensive performance into like, listen, you made a choice at offensive coordinator. the weekend before, and you're paying the consequences today. Listen, and to be fair, like Ludwig doesn't mean that's necessarily better. Like Ludwig didn't play Glover at all.
Right.
Like right, wrong, or indifferent, whether it was his choice or not. Like it's not like you can be like Ludwig would have ran him 10 times. No, he wouldn't have. He ran him 0. When you look at the final stat sheet at the end of the game, and you're like, why did they do this? What was the plan? Frankly, if there was a plan, who knows what it was and where it went? Because it's game 1 with this. It's something fresh, and fresh isn't always good, but it's fresh.
That's what was so interesting was, they got other guys that we haven't seen all season. They got them involved. They got them on the field. We saw Landon King for a handful.
Munir McClain had a catch.
Munir McClain had a catch and played a handful of plays. Jalen Glover, we saw Mike Mitchell and Jalen Glover in the game. Mike didn't get a carry, but he got on the field. And yet, and we even saw, a different set of run plays. We saw a little outside zone more than we have in weeks previous. It wasn't just hammering the inside zone button. It wasn't just that. They mixed up the looks, and I was encouraged by that. But again, when you look at the stat sheet, the box score at the end of the night, you only see 20 rushes compared to, or what was it, 26 rushing attempts, with 8 of those coming from the quarterbacks. So really, you're talking about 18 carries for running backs. That's just,
and I know one for sure, maybe a second one that were actually designed like QB runs. Like,
yeah,
the rest of them were just scrambles. The rest of those are sacks or scrambles. Like
sacks or scrambles. Yep.
What did they throw the ball? 39 times?
37 times. 37 times. 20 of 37 passing for 216 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception between the two of them.
Almost 2-1 passing in a game where you ran under 60 plays.
In a game
close game too, like the one that you're not playing from behind.
And credit Houston, they made it tough, right? Like Mekhi and Jalen, they ripped off a couple big gains, but they were also getting into the backfield quite a bit. There's a lot of runs where it was 2 yards, 3 yards, 0 yards. It was tough for a stretch there, and forced kind of Utah to go to the pass a little bit more to try and open up some space. And that's been the issue in these last 2 games specifically, is that defense is just going all in on stopping the run and not worried about what's going to hurt them in the passing game. And that's been an issue. And for Utah, it's tough because now, your offensive line is struggling because all that they're seeing is just guys coming, and you're seeing kind of fundamentals, technique slip a little bit as the game wears on because they're just dealing with guys constantly, blitzing and shooting gaps. And, they're trying to adjust. They're trying to overcompensate and do more than what they should. And so it's compounded. All of these things compound, and it results in what we saw: 18 rushing attempts between 2 running backs and 37 passing attempts between the 2 quarterbacks. And, for Utah, that's just not the method. That's not the way. And, I do think we'll see, Bajakian obviously put more of his stamp on the offense moving forward, especially with the bye week, and what that'll look like moving forward. We'll see. But I do think we'll see more QB run. I think we'll see a little more. I hope we see more runs just in general for the running backs because, Mekhi, Jalen have obviously proven that they can run the ball pretty effectively. Just surprising that they went away from it in that second half. I'd be curious. Let me see if I can find the rushing attempts in the second half.
One thing too that I keep coming back to is especially with the offensive line, you've had 3 different guys at right guard.
Yeah.
And 3 different guys with 3 different, and all of them have different strengths and weaknesses. That's a tough thing to kind of mask, especially when you're, again, the offense isn't clicking and you got guys blitzing almost every single play, or selling out against the run. It's just one of those things where it's not something that's going to show up on a stat sheet, but it's a really big part of the offense when you got 3 different guys who've been rotating the last, I guess really 2 different guys have been rotating the last 2 weeks, but you started last week with a third one. So Yeah, it's tough, and I don't know how you like improve it with those three unless you have a really deep dive into doing something with or sticking with one or just something. I don't know what it is.
I hate to be like the even darker cloud on this. Like, I don't think you can improve it at this point. I think this is what it is for this season. Like, unless Bajakian like goes to the drawing board in the off week and he's just like, let's try some new shit that nobody's seen before and that just wasn't in the playbook, or maybe it's just like Isaac Wilson, Brandon Rose, whoever the hell it's going to be. Like, you're expected to know the whole playbook by BYU week. Come hell or high water, we're calling the whole thing. Like, it's just, if something doesn't dramatically change with what they have to call, what they have, like, I think it's become clear that they're not going to be able to just do what they want in terms of like, we're going to line up and beat you 11 on 11 because we're better than you. Like, they've got to start getting creative. And this offense just isn't really that. We talked about it last week a little bit. Like, this offense is kind of just built to be vanilla and to just say, like, we're going to be better than you. We're going to execute better than you. And that's why we're going to beat you on offense, because we're going to be more disciplined and we're going to be where we need to be. And like, that's just not been good enough this season.
Yeah. I do think, you go read some of the comments, right? Comments from, opposing coaches, right? Like, you'll see anonymous coaches commenting on Utah or whatever. You'll see like a lot of commentary about the offense not being the most difficult, right? It's not the most difficult offense to prepare for. It's very simple, like as you said, vanilla. It's very what's coming. It's just that they just execute. They're willing to pound the rock as much as they do and pound the inside zone as much as they do because they know that they can just push you around. They haven't been able to do that this season as much. And that's tough to talk about that, as Utah offense just struggles and they can't seem to figure a way to fix it. But that's what Bajakian is tasked with this week, is finding ways to fix it. Do you feel like there are things that they can, what sort of things can they go to fix the offense? Can tempo help? Can no huddle type stuff, can that help? Like, is that the sort of stuff that Utah has to go to fix and address some of these offensive struggles?
To be honest, I think if I knew there was a quick answer to that right now, I would just be even more frustrated that wasn't happening. I'm personally so deflated by this offense. It's hard to say what they're even capable of at this point. The thing I keep coming back to is, if you're going to get 0 yards on 10-yard plays, hell, let's make them 50-yard plays. Let's take some shots. And like, I would love to see more big swings on offense rather than, we kind of joke, and I can't remember if it's been on air at all or just off air, but we joke a lot that it's just like, hey, 2.5 yards a play is all you need. And that's all we're trying to get. Like, that this is the 3-yard play. And then after that, we'll run the 4-yard play. And then after that, we only need another 3-yard play. And like, I would like to see more opportunities sprinkled in to say, like, yeah, we're going to take some risks and we're going to try to get 30 yards at a time, at least, 6, 7, 8 times in the game. It feels like once a game, they take a shot that's over 30 yards, and probably because there's guys covered and there's guys sitting over the top. But like, at a certain point, who cares? At a certain point, you got to let your guy have a chance to go get it and see if you can get big chunks, because like, you're just not good enough to sustain something for 10 plays like you need to be to get 50 yards. And so like, go get it in one swing.
But like, here's the issue is like, we're talking about the offense and, Isaac isn't making decisions quick enough. Brandon Rose, I don't know, maybe he's not making decisions quick enough either. Hard to tell on just 15 passing attempts, in what, 25 minutes of action, if that he got on Saturday. But anyways, we're talking about these slow developing plays and the need for, quicker decisions. Like, I think you can find a better balance, right, of getting the ball out quickly, forcing, getting it out, one read type throws. We saw that a lot for Isaac early on, hitting Brand on these quick outs, getting the ball out, getting his, dropping his plant foot, getting it out to Dorian Singer on a, up the sideline. There are these moments where he gets the ball out pretty quickly, and there are things to build on. I think he can obviously make throws. But yeah, I do think there needs to be some more shots downfield. But can they it's just like, how do you find this balance of
I want I want Utah to start playing some dumb guy offense.
Yes.
I want them to play with that irrational confidence you see from people who are too stupid to be as good as they are at what they're doing. I don't want to name names and be like and throw people under buses. I shouldn't, but like there's a certain aspect of college quarterback, especially young college quarterback, to extent where you're just like, you need to be too confident in your abilities. And I don't get the sense of that from anyone on this team other than maybe Dorian Singer. And I don't know if he can be too confident in his abilities, frankly. And so it's like, that's the kind of thing I want to see from this offense, is just the kind of thing where they're just like, no, I'm 100% positive that I can make this throw into double coverage. And that's why I'm making it. And that I can complete this ball with those two guys down there because I'm just that damn good. And like they don't play anything like that kind of football, and there's just no risk taking allowed with this offense. And so like part of me just says like, listen, if this is what we're getting with no risk taking, let's see what we get with some risk taking.
With some
Like
risk.
we'll probably get some interceptions. Like we'll probably get some bad outcomes, but like what if there's some good outcomes sprinkled in there? What if we throw 4 interceptions and get 3 touchdowns? That would be a huge improvement.
Like, dude, so yes, this is something I've
Oklahoma
thought about
State.
quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, like, so we saw over the last couple of weeks, right? Like this gets to the run game conversation where we're talking about they just pound the inside, pound the inside, pound the inside. Like eventually defense are just going to know you're running it up the middle, regardless of like how you block it up. You're just going to run it up the middle. But we saw Houston, you run a little outside zone, and what do you know? You got Jalen Glover ripping one off for 22 yards. Mekhi Bernard on an outside zone track was able to plant his foot and cut right up the middle, untouched, 14 yards. Like when you add a little variance to what you're doing, it adds a little unpredictability. And and just to your point, Cam, like if you take some risks and allow your guys to, throw the ball down the field, to take a chance here and there throughout the game, like who knows what's gonna happen? Like add a little variance, add a little, spice to your life, man. Come on, what are we doing?
I want Utah to throw 10 passes over 40 yards against BYU. Like that's where I'm at. Is I'm just like, just F it, Dorian's down there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of game I want to see from Utah. Because like honestly, I'm just like I'm watching Utah offense and I'm watching BYU play defense, and I'm like, this is a bad recipe for Utah's offense. If Utah goes out there and tries to do what they've been doing, BYU is going to eat them alive. That defense is good. Like not
It is good.
They're not pretty good. That defense is good. Like if you go out there and try to run between the tackles 40 times, or you go out there and try to do what you did against Houston, whatever the hell that was, like it's just like not going to work. Like just it's right where you want it. You haven't done it all season. They don't think you're going to do it, so just do it.
Just do it.
This is the thing I came back to a lot on Saturday because I watched most of the BYU UCF game, and this is really going to pain me to say. I would love A-Rod right now, because watching what he was doing, the thing that was pissing me off during Utah's game was the fact that if Utah's in shotgun, they're going to pass. If they're under center, they're more than likely going to run. And there was, like you said, there's not a lot of variance in that. If you start throwing play action, RPOs, something to get linebackers to bite, and this is what BYU was doing. They were successful in the run, and then they started getting UCF's linebackers to immediately come 4 yards forward on the snap, and there's a receiver going just right behind them, wide open space in the middle of the field. and it was just easy passes. And then when the other times when, like Cam was saying, you're taking deep shots and you're getting 15 yards because it's just an automatic PI because you got one-on-one coverage and Retzlaff is underthrowing the guys and they're just getting 15 yards, easy pickups on pass interference calls.
Pass interference call, never heard of it.
Dorian Singer picked up a couple defensive pass interference calls early on in the season.
Yeah,
I know. I think he got 2 or 3 within the first 3 games.
But do you know why
he knows how to do it?
Do you know why the 20-yard throw underneath the safeties is open sometimes? Because you make the 50-yard throw over the safety sometimes. Like they're never gonna leave that 20-yard zone between them and the linebackers available if they never have someone over the top of them.
Now they're playing 10 yards because they don't throw 20 yards.
Because and they're
we're at the furthest logical. We're approaching the limit as it approaches 0 of where the safeties can play to the line of scrimmage to play
before
the pass against
box
Utah.
Safeties. Before it's cover 0. Yeah, they're towing that line of cover 0. Because like that's all they need to be is like 8 yards deep. You're fine. Drop to 15, you're okay. Like that's all defense have to do right now is because there's no threat.
We know we have 2 guys who can do it for sure. I'm sure we have a couple other ones, but we know Money can do it. We know Dorian can do it. Like,
We've seen Money do it. Try it.
We've seen Money do it multiple times. Yeah, like just try. Like
try. This is where we're at with the offense. Just try.
It's so bad.
I don't listen. We don't expect success anymore. Success is out the window, right? Like like trying is all we want. Like that's we want effort. That's where we're at with Utah's offense. Is I would be happy with some effort. Like give me something that tells me you want to move this football down the field.
We are the gif with the stick just saying do something. that is us right now. Do something.
I just want their safety to have to like
play football,
be sore. You know, like I want their safety to be like I should stretch after the game.
I'm tired.
Like I don't think Utah's had a safety have to do that. Like I don't think their jerseys have gotten dirty.
just out there in the outfield, man. Just sitting there, just
looking at butterflies.
They're playing center field, and their pitcher's pitching a perfect game. Like they're just they're relaxing. They're back there doing their taxes.
Swing and a miss. Just tough, man. Oh, this is tough. This is hard. This is so difficult to talk about. I'm laughing, but it hurts. It hurts to laugh. It hurts to talk this way about the Utah offense because we had such high expectations for this team and for this offense, and they all went out the window because of that damn water cooler. And it's so unfortunate that this is where we're at with this team. Like it sucks. Like that's what you can point to, that it was the water cooler's fault. Like that's what Utah fans can point to, and they're not wrong. They're not wrong. Water coolers ruined the 2024 season for Utah, and that's super sad.
This is a Powerade podcast from way back.
Big time Powerade podcast. We've been on the Powerade. What is it? What's the blue one? The blue one that's always at like Taco Bell and stuff. McDonald's.
Blue Powerade. Come on, man. Like, nobody has actual. No one says flavors. It's just the color.
That's a good point.
You just say color.
Knows.
Oh yeah, does Powerade even claim to have flavors? Like, what is blue supposed to be? It's just always been blue to me.
Blue raspberry, probably, like every other blue drink.
Because Gatorade, may they rot in hell. They've got like lots of blue flavors with names.
They're the real a-holes. Gatorade. Gosh, the a-holes. Anyways.
That's the state of the offense, is we're like, let's talk about sports drink colors.
This is so tough, man. All right, let's talk post-game stuff. Mekhi Bernard. I'm just gonna read the quote here. So he was asked essentially what went wrong for the offense. And he replied, "Can't answer that. I'm not gonna answer that. I know what it is. but I'm not going to answer that. And media, Furlong, quickly, promptly followed up. Can you elaborate, allude to what you may be referring to? And Mackay responded, no, I'm sorry, can't, sorry, appreciate you, but can't. First of all, I know there's criticism of Mackay for responding that way, and I get it, right? Like you shouldn't lead with that. But look, man, at least he's almost willing to call out the issue and is willing to take it that far. I'm glad we didn't just get a cookie cutter response from him. And I appreciated that he dabbled in some transparency. We just dive into the full thing, man. Please.
I don't blame him or anybody. Like, no reaction would be unjust. Like, fans who are frustrated by this, like, I promise you, Mackay Bernard is more frustrated than you are.
Yes.
If there's anybody on the team that deserves to be the most frustrated, it's him. Like him and Dorian, and like at least on the offensive side, like.
Mackay, sure.
It's like it's Mackay and Dorian are like the only two that you ever watch a game and you're like, hey, if we had 22 of those guys, we might do all right.
Yeah, if I were Mackay, I'd be introducing some dudes in the locker room to my fists by now. I think, frankly, like I the more I watch him, the more we said 5 games ago. Like if Utah had 22 guys with Mackay Bernard's heart, they'd win 12 games like without a problem. Easy. And it's just when we talk about the team being demoralized and lack of effort, like I know that I'm not talking about Mackay Bernard.
Right.
That he's absolutely not the person we're talking about. And like as to what he's referring to, I mean, I don't listen. I like to think that it's very dramatic to think that there's one thing, that there's a silver bullet, that it's just like, if they would just solve that thing that Mackay Bernard is referring to, clearly they know the problem, just solve that problem. Like it's not that simple. Like there's probably a thing that they are most frustrated about, that they've talked amongst themselves as being most frustrated, or that's not such a secret, and that, like this right there for us to see. Like, listen, Andy Ludwig's gone. They loved Andy Ludwig by most accounts. Like it could be that. Cam Rising's gone. They all loved Cam Rising by every account. Like it could easily be that. Like the other quarterbacks are playing like garbage. It could easily be that. Like the effort he's seeing on the field around him, it could easily be that. Like it's just, there's so many things it could be, and all of them would be right. All of them would be the right answer. Like there's no one thing wrong with this offense right now. If anything, if I had to point at one, the most fixable thing to me is, again, like if I'm Mackay Bernard and I'm looking around at the energy and effort other guys are given on the football field, that to me is the problem. Because I'm going like, you can't change who your offensive coordinator is. You can't change what happened to Cam. You can't change what the quarterbacks are doing, but you can change what you're doing. So why are you doing this?
Yeah. I think at the root of what Mackay is referring to, and he said something later on in the interview that makes me believe this, and he talked about essentially putting winning above everything else, and I think that gets to your point, Cam, of effort, right? Put in the effort, put winning above everything else, above your individual aspirations, your own agendas, your own frustrations. Put it to the side and put winning first. And I think, that is what I think Mackay is trying to get at with this. And that can include, like I said, a lot of different things can be included in that, right? The frustrations, the poor play, all of that, the lack of execution, the lack of energy, effort, all of that stuff, I think can be categorized into one single thing of put winning above everything else. To me, that's what Mackay is trying to say there.
Yeah, like again, like to echo what you guys have been saying, like I mean, like coming from somebody who played college ball, like football is such a weird, not weird, but it's one of those things where like you go out there and you literally get the piss beat out of you. Like they still study is like every game you're in like the equivalent of like a 30-mile-an-hour car wreck, depending on the position you play, especially like offensive line and running back, like Mackay
running
does.
back.
So when you go out there and like you're doing this with the like what's probably going to be your best friends for the rest of your life, at least in my case it was. Some of my best friends I played ball with in college. Like the sense of camaraderie that you should be feeling as teammates in football is, I feel like, you know, a second to none to a lot of really to any sport, because again, you're putting yourself through this, you know, every single week and sometimes multiple times a week, depending on how hard you practice. Like it can get frustrating when you look across, you know, the other guys that you're doing this for, and they don't, you know, it doesn't seem like they care as much as you. And
it's called trauma bonding, Tyson.
Yeah, I know. I've done plenty of that.
Yeah, football players all need therapy. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh no, we do. We definitely do. But I can get where, especially when watching the games and you see just how much he puts into it, to not get the same output from the guys around you. And that can even go up to coaching staff too. It doesn't, you know, sometimes you might not think that they're making the best decisions for you. And in that moment where you're getting the piss beat out of you multiple times for, you know, like a few hours on a Saturday, like it sucks. It really, really sucks. And the fact that he even just gave that answer and not just like a full blown tirade is honestly probably a little impressive.
I promise you those guys are pissed at Whittingham a lot of the time. It's just the nature of being a football player. Like there are times where you are pissed off at your head coach. Doesn't matter how much you like him or how much you respect him. Like, especially after a game that you lose, especially again, another game where like we're now 4 games in a row where there have been puzzling decisions by the coaching staff at many turns. Like, yeah, they're absolutely frustrated. These guys know ball. These guys know like what kind of things the coaches should and shouldn't be doing at times. And when they don't do them, they're looking at them. They're looking around too. Like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
And
I would die for the guy I played for in college, but I still haven't. I'll probably never forgive him for one specific decision. My senior year and like the most important game of the year, I still don't think I'll ever forgive him for that. But I will still die for the guy. But yeah,
football players, man, you guys complicated.
Very much can be like that.
Tyson's like, nobody kills that guy but me.
But me, because I'm gonna do it with love. I'm gonna love him to death, literally, with my thighs. Anyways,
shout out Mike Maynard. I'll give him a shout out, even though I still won't forgive him for it, but I'll shout him out.
Do you think Mackay really appreciates Furlong though? I know he said so, but do you think he really does?
He said appreciate you guys.
Oh, okay. So he wasn't talking about Furlong specifically.
He looked at all of us. Appreciate you guys. And he looked at all of us. So yeah.
He kind of blocked out Josh with his hand.
Yeah, he looked away from Josh, if anything. Appreciate you guys. He looked away from Furlong. It was pretty fun. I tried not to.
He pointed at some of the people around Furlong.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys.
Furlong's like Thor from like the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, just like slowly pushing his head like farther in. The guy just keeps looking away.
Yeah. Yeah, it was that sort of thing. Yeah. Any final thoughts, guys? Like, I hope everybody takes some time away from football and Utah football this week. It is the bye week. Get out, go golfing.
This is the week we have fun. This is the fun week.
The week we have fun. Yeah. Touch some grass. Man, tough times, but tough times never last. Tough people do.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to
I read
Anthony
that
Richardson
somewhere.
for checking himself out of the game.
Oh God.
Dude, a lot
I didn't
of
think that
running.
was
I
real.
get it.
I did not think that was real until I
I've
actually
never
watched it.
related to an athlete more than in that moment where he said it was a lot of running. Yeah, dude. 10 yards.
I cannot tell it. Like,
like-
when we were talking about like putting winning above all else, I was off camera and I was just laughing to myself because the first thing I thought of was Anthony Richardson being like, "Whoo, I'm tired, coach. Take me out.
Tapping the helmet.
I'm
Tapping
done."
the helmet. I need a breather. I need to
Like,
blow it
bro,
fast.
you're a quarterback. Just hand it off to the guy and chill there for a sec. That was so funny. Oh man, that guy winning above all else for Anthony Richardson. Oh man. Well, fellas, appreciate you guys. We'll sign off. We'll put a capper on this one. Appreciate all the listeners. Thank you so much for the support. We will get through this. We will get through this.